Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson. Of course, we had technical difficulties with our live stream. There's something about the IP address, I'm guessing. I do apologize. I look forward to, of course, being live again, but we're going to go ahead and have our session with Bobbi today. Sorry for any inconvenience, of course. Remember, we're not traditional therapists by any stretch of the imagination. That's not what we're trying to convey here with our patients, but we're more interested in getting to abuse care than mental health care. Abuse is a very big part of all of our lives, and at ARO, A-R-O, abuserefuge.org, abuserefuge.org, and G-O-A-R-O, goarrow.org. You can find a list of the abuses. There's 21 of them, to include narcissism, child abuse, sexual abuse, PTSD, and a few other. And we'll talk more about that as time ensues. Like, if you go to the website, sign up over those nonprofit websites, and you'll find that. Now, at Norm Therapy Inc., that's normtherapy.com, you'll find the for-profit side of what we do. Anyway, let's see if we can get Bobbi in here and find out how her last few days were. Hi, Bobbi. How are you today?
Hello, I'm here.
How was your last few days? Please tell me.
Oh, where do I start?
The beginning.
Well, I mean, it always starts off good. It's those unexpected moments that sometimes takes me over the edge. And to tell you the truth, I can't even tell you what started it. Started the argument, or started the the misunderstandings, or started the hurtfulness.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you what started it.
Well,
But I remember,
take a stab.
huh?
Take a stab at it. Try to tell me what happened. What triggered everything?
Well, you know, I've, so I'm far from perfect. Let's get that straight. And we've been together 4 years. And in the first couple of years, I remained silent and just let all the name calling go on, let it just whatever. You know, he didn't want me doing drugs, caught me doing drugs once, started a big thing. He went to jail behind it. Um, Anytime that I feel fear or feel that we can't de-escalate, I will call law enforcement to have them de-escalate the situation. Doesn't mean he goes to jail, as it was seen on one of the episodes, like go lay down, go whatever, do whatever. But there comes a point in time when I get tired of being called a white bitch, a honky, a cracker, a this. So when I say nigger, it's an issue. I've only said it once. Was three or 4 years ago, but I've never lived that down. So anytime that comes up, and I say come on now, or I'm racist, I'm this, I'm that, anything. And last night when he blew me about my father and what I had shared on here that my father had done, and he used that to hurt me, I did not know if I was going to be safe. Because if you'll go that far to say something to hurt me, I don't know what else you might do. And it was just shoot, 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 all around. Anything possible that he could say, hurtful, anything. And I was gonna leave.
There are three things
So
that come to me real quick.
uh,
Before we let you go further in that, I need to explain three things. One,
okay.
Whether he knows it or not, and he will learn that as we continue our conversations, him and I. But whether he knows it or not, he's a proximity predator. And it isn't like he's trying to be a proximity predator. That's just who he is. He grew up not trusting people, and rightfully so, with his background. and I'm not making an excuse for him at all. What he did and what he's doing is wrong. What you said some years ago was wrong. We're going to talk about all of that and unpack it. But quickly, proximity predators are the people who are around you who you just can't get rid of. You just can't get a new husband every time you have an argument. You just can't get rid of your mom or your dad or your grandparents or your children. These people can prey on you. And because you allow that to occur, not that you had any other choice but to sit there and take it. That's not my point. My point is, in order to de-escalate sometimes, the best thing to do is not respond at all. Not because they're saying terrible things and how could they, white this and trash and all the crap you just said. When things like that occur, you just let it go. I will hang up on someone. I just hang up or I walk away. This is my thing. When someone starts speaking and I know what they're about to say is ridiculous or hurtful, I just simply walk away or I hang up the phone. I don't care after that because I don't deserve that. If you sit there in it because you're physically together with one another, it's going to hurt you. And that's one thing. That's not an admonishment or a punishment to you. That's just obvious what happens. He's a proximity predator. And until he learned not to be one, he's going to be that because it's his nature based on what he's gone through and the environment he developed his proximity predator nature from. Second thing I want to mention is it's not okay that he say those things. It's not okay. On any stretch of the imagination, it should not be tolerated or said, nor you. Why? Because sometimes we get so hurt, we end up hurting the people more than we instead of throwing a grenade, we shoot off a missile. And it just blows everything up, Bobby. The things he say to you that may be racial, that may be denigrating to you and hurtful, you both need to have a meeting of the minds. Not that we're going to work together, but we're going to work together within these parameters. And I'd like to talk to both of you about that over the next few sessions. And that is that you got a week before I see you again. So I want to unpack a lot for you, okay? Is that okay? You're in a lot of pain, I can tell. Look at you. You're sitting there like, what the F? You are. And you should be. Because what you go through, in addition to what you're trying to accomplish in life, is hard. It's not easy what you're doing right now. You're revisioning everything about your life and you're going after that vision. And
yeah, and then because I work 8 to 5, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have class from 5 to 8. Now there's no time. No time. Put everything before him. Oh, there's no time. Well, I'm trying to get someplace so that I can have a degree or have some kind of another certification to create time. Okay,
because your most precious resource.
You know,
that's the most.
I declined the other job, but I got to get certified in what I'm doing.
The most intelligent thing you've said to date and the smartest. You have to build yourself, and sometimes it takes time to do that. But it also takes something else that when you sit down and have a meeting of the minds, which both of you need to have, where you both meet up in your head and say, this is what we're going to do to move forward. And you're either on board or you're not. But we have to make this happen because I'm trying to further my life, speaking for you, in order to make us better. And I need your support. And it's going to be some long hours. It's going to be, we don't have a lot of time. So whatever time we do spend together, you know, people say this as a cliche, we need quality time. I like to hear sometimes when people say that because it makes me laugh. Because if they knew what quality time actually was, they would already be doing it because it's much better than wasting your time. What happens when people try to set aside some quality time is that they don't have an idea what quality time looks like. And what you want to be able to do in that quality-oriented area of life, you want it to be able to set up a routine for goodness, a routine for kindness, a routine for communication, a routine for understanding something new and what happened in your week and in your day. And then give each other a chance to express themselves, even if they had a bad day. Express themselves, and you be there or he be there to console you, to support you, and to make sure that you don't spiral from something otherwise misunderstood. That's the second thing I wanted to say. You need to learn what quality time actually looks like and sit down with each other and figure out what are those things you guys need to have occur during that quality period. And set aside some time for you guys, if it's 15 minutes or an hour and a half, whatever it is, per day, per week, per 3 days, whatever you guys can squeeze out from one another, make that your priority. And make sure those things you're trying to accomplish in that schedule actually occur. And you both have a turn to express yourself, to agree, to disagree. You have a chance to do that. Third thing I want to talk to you about. The word nigger has such an old connotation to it. It's almost like saying that's the worst possible thing you can say to a person with any color in them, whether it's 1% color. Matter of fact, the law back during times of slavery was that if you had 4% black in your blood, you were black. And black people wanted to be lighter so much that they create societies. If you ever get a chance to look it up, they create societies to distinguish themselves between other blacks. The lighter skinned black would say that because you could see their veins on their wrist here, that they were white or more white than the other colored or blacks. And there was no real discrimination. It was distinction back in this time. And it was called the Blue Vein Society. It's a real thing where black people discriminated against other black people. That discrimination and nigger and removing themselves from that type of accosting, which it pretty much was, to remove themselves from that, those terms, they created societies to say, look, we're lighter skinned. We're just as light as the Chinese and the Asians and the Hispanics and the Mexicans that are here. We're just as light as them. So we should be treated more white. And what people don't understand is that history, Bobby. The history is very simple. When Emancipation Proclamation occurred, when Abraham Lincoln signed it and freed the slaves, what they failed to do was to accommodate the workforce or to figure out how to educate people to get them back in the workforce and get jobs or not like today's jobs, but steel mills and build roads and all the other things that people did in order to have commerce back then. It was still kind of the wild, wild west and the north and the south back then. The only sophisticated area in the country at the time was Florida, parts of Florida, as well as the Northeast. And everything was moving west. So nigger actually means black, the color black. And because the definition of black is not the amalgamation of all colors, which it does say it's the amalgamation and the inclusion of all colors which make it black, but it's the dirtiest, nastiest, lowest thing on the planet you can actually refer to. And it also connotates that the word in most languages, other than English, for the word black is negro, negra, is Niger. It's variations of the word nigger all over the word. Negro means black in the book of colors in Spanish, negro. And so when you hear the word black, it always has a negative connotation. The worst, underhanded, the black sheep of the family, all of that goes into that. But the way you encapsulate it all into one word to destroy the humanity of a human being is to say the word nigger. Even when black people say it to other black people, it makes me cringe sometimes, but there's a reason why that happens. Just like right now, you can go into a great restaurant right now in Los Angeles or Atlanta or New York, and you can get some pig feet or some collard greens. or you could get some water cornbread, or you can get any other black meal, so to speak, that was pretty much a black thing. But they didn't know that rural people ate, the same kinds of food, like in the farms, but they ate the better parts of the meat. So the pig feet, the pig ears, the jowls, and all that kind of stuff, they threw out in the garbage, and black people made cuisine out of it. The weeds, collard greens and all that, but weeds, they cultivated them to make food out of them because they were fed slop. Just like, matter of fact, slave food was oftentimes worse than pig and cow food. So when you call a person a nigger, or when they feel like that is what you think they are, you've just taken them to the actual lowest part. But if you're my kindred spirit as a black person, then if you're my kindred spirit as a black person, then I can call you a nigger, you can call me a nigger back. I don't prefer it. I don't like when people call me a nigger in any circumstances. And I've said nigger about 50 times.
I don't like honky. I don't like white bitch. I don't like none of that. I don't like junkie bitch. I don't like none of that. So
I understand.
when I have heard that for my whole entire thing, when I say nigger one time,
you should
that's
have to
because
pay
I'm
for the
sick
rest of
and
your life.
tired of that shit. That's
Right.
what that means.
You're right.
And so how does it
agree.
feel? Because that's how I feel every single time you say it.
You should emote exactly that feeling. We're getting to you now. We're getting to you right now. There is never a justification for the word nigger, although you did use it, and I think.
But I pay for it every single time.
I'm not finished. But I think that in this particular case, you use it in conjunction with you being called on what you thought was the exact same thing for white people. And I think that's fair. I think it's wrong, but it's fair. That's your relationship. I don't think we talked so much. I don't think you're a racist at all.
When all you're doing is feeding your mind with these slave movies and all of this, and just that's all you're absorbing into your mind. Guess what? I'm not the one that did that to your ancestors. Sorry, not this guy. I didn't do it. Just like you didn't do anything to mine.
Exactly.
Or you're like your dad. You're this snitch. You're this, you're that, what, on and on and on and on and on.
I'm gonna get to that, Bobbi.
Of my mom's ashes.
I'm gonna get to that. I understand. Let's get to that one by one. When we convolute anything, it's gonna always be misrepresented and, is more importantly, misunderstood. So let's just go to one issue at a time. You're not wrong here. Let's be clear. I'm not saying you're wrong for saying nigger.
No, I'm just mad.
I know, but I'm saying it's wrong to say nigger. But you and your circumstances, remember this, circumstances will always dictate the outcome of every situation. Whatever circumstance you put yourself in, the outcome will be indicative of the situation you're in. So you make your own outcomes, and that's what you're doing. He took you to a low point, you took him to the lowest point. And the reason is different, and this is so you'll understand. You may not have put his ancestors in there, but the fathers of the country and our forefathers did. And if the lineage of someone, even in the Bible, say the son will pay for the sins of the father, that's even biblical. And you're a church-going lady and you understand that. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean you're wrong. You're just caught up in a legacy of events that have occurred over the history of the country. When a person get this newfound knowledge, and there's a lot of new knowledge out there about, some black guy invented that, and it wasn't a white guy, or somebody was the founder of America, but he killed slaves and millions of Indians across the stretches of his travel. People are just having new knowledge, and to be very honest, that new knowledge is very powerful, but it's too much knowledge. It's too much. And it can't be properly digested unless you build yourself up first to digest it, so you don't try to use it against anyone. If you don't have the knowledge of having knowledge, you're going to take that knowledge and you're going to misuse it. You're going to misrepresent, and you're going to say things to people you care about or the people you don't care about out of context to hurt them. That's what's happening with you and your husband now. You guys.
But don't you realize that I said this once 3 years ago? One time 3 years ago, I've never,
I don't think you're racist. I don't think that that was meant in its context because you have mixed children. So, and you have mixed, you have
and you
mixed
know what?
family members.
Every time we get into an argument, I say, this is how you don't treat a woman.
Exactly.
This is how you don't treat a woman.
And they need to hear that, but they need to hear it in a context that's a healthy context. And we'll talk about that in the future too. This is why it's so necessary to have these sessions. So you can talk this out with somebody who's actually listening. I'm listening to you, although I'm talking through you and over you sometimes because I want to keep you on point. Not because I'm not interested in your topic, not because I'm not interested in exactly how you feel and how it's impacting you. I understand that. But
because I'm ready to pack up and go.
Everybody would be. That's a normal knee-jerk reaction. That's what everybody would pack up and go. That is normal. What's not normal is that you don't deploy some more patience, some more technique, and some more listening skills. And more importantly, that you are brave enough, which I know you are, to sit face to face, like you said, after a whole lot of talking, and say, okay, here are our boundaries. And they just can't be boundaries of physical boundaries or mental boundaries. They have to be sacred boundaries too, based on respect. Like if you say something in this interview right now, and he comes back to you and he calls you a name, or he speaks down to you, or he throws it in your face, or for the lack of another term, excuse me, weaponize it against you, that is beyond wrong. He should be supporting you and trying to understand what it is and why you're saying it. And let's get to the root of it so he can support you in it so you can overcome it. And you can be made whole or better as a result of his support. He's not doing that. And that is wrong. But there's a reason he's not doing it. Because he don't know how. He hasn't been taught that yet. Nobody's ever supported him a day in his life. This is not his excuse.
And he says that I don't. And I don't know how.
No, but you are. And I'll explain it to you in a second. But he hasn't had what you've had. You've had a reawakening. You've had a rejuxtapose, a repositioning of yourself on a trajectory that's towards success and development and creation and knowledge and family and money. You're on that path now. So you can, late in your life now, instead of, better late than never, make some of those course corrections in your life that you need. You need support for that. You don't need to be arguing with someone about the things you're saying in therapy, especially when you both agreed that it's public and it will be respected by one another. He's not respecting you, and we're going to talk about that. And it's not his fault that he's not respecting you. It's his fault when he knows he's not respecting you and he keeps doing it. That's his fault. But he's never understood how to do that, what you're looking for anyone. He needs a few more sessions with me. We're going to talk about it on that session. And I want him to hear what it takes for a real man, not a soldier, but a father and a husband and a best friend to respond to you. Not because he needs me to buck him up. That's not what I'm doing. Everything we're talking about here is about educating one another and enlightening each other and settling on our differences and creating our bridges of communication and respecting those lines of communication once they're made. That's what we're talking about here. Everything you're saying today hurts. But if you communicated it differently, and you have the skill set to do it, but you're still responding, forgive me for saying that, you're still reacting to his triggers, and that escalates. If you don't react when somebody say you're a white hunky or whatever you called it before, if you don't react to it, and then they do it again, and you just don't react, or you walk away, go do something else, or you just let it go.
Or he's right here.
It's okay. People tire out, Bobbi. You have to learn how.
He doesn't.
You have to learn how to just not respond. And whether he tires out today or tomorrow or next week, it will occur. But keep in mind, while you're going through that, luckily, he will be meeting with me a couple of days a week. And we're going to work on that, him and I. So he doesn't try to hurt you.
And then when he doesn't get to me, you know, like I said, he doesn't, even my previous, I've had 2 serious relationships,
Mm-hmm.
him and another guy that my youngest 2 children's father was murdered and all that stuff in Youngstown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he wasn't able to see that my twins are disabled. It doesn't take rocket science to see that. Okay. William is on a higher functioning level. He's going to get a waiver. Hopefully, he just got out of some behavioral, so I don't know if he's going to get the waiver now or not. But Robert just got connected with Village Network. He's really low on the spectrum. Okay. And for him to threaten to put him outside, in Robert's mind, he means that literally to him. Like he is scared to death. He'll take off running without a coat. Don't know where he's going. Stop doing that to him.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. You cannot hurt my children.
You should be
as
a
much
lioness.
As much as you show them right and try to teach them right, when you say things like that, there's no respect there. There's none.
And that's dangerous too. I mean, this is something you need to really have a meeting of the minds over, and not an argument, and not that kind of debate. It needs to be really set in stone, the parameters of the relationship, not only between you and your husband, but also between both of you and your children. Because if you're protecting them and he's not at some stages, but I think at times he's been a good dad, but
yeah,
not to take that away from him, but if you're protecting them and he's not, then that one thing does cancel out the other. So they're really unprotected. And so you have to both be protecting them in a way that's nurturing and kind and effective. And telling somebody, they're going to put them out the house, even if you're not anywhere on the spectrum of danger high or danger low. If you're not anywhere, if I told my daughter, or if my mother told me, I'm kicking you out of the house for whatever reason, and you don't get something right or wrong, then that is a serious issue of abandonment. And the psychosis associated with that over the years could be quite devastating to that child. So you would hurt them more than help them by making that threat. I just watched a 3-second video, where a lady asked her son, what is 3 + 5? He said 5. And then she says, okay, if Jimmy had 3 apples and he gave you all 3 and you already had 2, how many is that? He said 46. And then she went, boy, where did you get 46 from? He said, is it 13? And she hit him upside the head. And then dad said, son, the answer is 5. The answer is 5. Now, if Johnny has 3 apples and you gave him 2 apples more, how many apples do Johnny have? And he said, is it 13? And the dad said, that answer is 5. And he said, oh, it's 22. What does that mean? It means that in a linear sense, the son can do math, because he first said it was 5. But in the abstract, his thinking process is different. To say apples to oranges to bananas versus just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is different. So instead of the father screaming at him and the mom popping him upside his head and pretty much saying he's stupid, they should have walked him backwards through it and talked with him about, why is it there's a difference between 3 + 2 is 5 and 3 apples plus 2 more apples is not 5? Therein lays the problem. And that's what's happening in your relationship. The relationship is you're both saying 5, but he's saying 46 sometime and you're saying 13. Not because you're wrong, but because no one has taught you about the deductive reasoning, or the skill tools that you need in order to deduce and say the right things and come to a conclusion that the right thing needs to be applied here and not just my knee-jerk action. If you don't get the 5, I'm going to stick you outside, that kind of thing. So if you don't know how to do those things, you go with what was done to you. And you have done something so tremendous, Bobbi. You convinced Montez to be here in these sessions. It was you. It was you that made.
I had to trick him or something.
No, you didn't trick him. You didn't trick him. You just gave him what he always needed. No, what he wanted was to be the man and a tough guy. But what he needed was therapy. What he needed was talk about his own abuses. He needed to talk about abusing you. And more importantly, and this is something he does, he abuses himself. And he doesn't even know it. Not because he's dumb. There's nothing to do with smart or dumb. It has to do with conditioning. He's been conditioned to be this way. Now you get this new knowledge, the slave shows, the black on power and all that stuff, because he is black and that's what he would subscribe to. Doesn't mean that you're against it. It's just that that's not your lineage. You look at some white shows and you get more familiar and identify with the white shows. Exactly.
I watch them. There's nothing like that. What I don't like is when he watches the shows that create the arguments that then
weaponize. He weaponized because no one's ever taught him that all knowledge is not good. You know, remember the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. You know, not all knowledge is good. It isn't. And until you know how to unpack it and where to put it and calm yourself to understanding that this did happen a few hundred years ago, but at the same time, you can see the effect over the past several hundred years, how blacks have been treated insofar as since the days of slavery. Did you know that they actually paid, the US government paid the slave owners for every slave they lost? After the Civil War, when slaves were freed, they paid them like a couple of $100, which back then was like a king ransom, for each and every slave that they lost. So slave owners made a ton of money. What did they give the slaves? They actually gave them 40 acres. They gave Abraham Lincoln had started giving 40 acres to each free slave family so they can till it and grow it and be their own. And then Lincoln was assassinated. The first thing the president did when he came in and took Lincoln's place was he abolished the 40 acres thing. The 40 acres and the mule thing, the mule was just, it was fiction because it just wasn't a part of the deal. But people say 40 acres and a mule because you need a mule to actually till that land and work that land. So 40 acres and a mule was the concept. And so they had actually installed slaves all up and down the eastern seaboard, starting with South Carolina southward. And then one fell swoop, when Lincoln died, they went in and threw all the slaves out of the land and turned it back over to its original landowners, Southerners, who also were given reparations to repair the land, made money off of repairing the land that the slaves supposedly destroyed. And then they came up with sharecropping. And then after sharecropping, the sharecropping was basically, you come work this land and you can share in the bounty of this land. You give us a part because we're the white landowners and you're the black people who are going to work the land, the cotton, the corn, and everything else. And so we're going to share in that. And then they came up with this whole new idea of, well, let's scam our way through it. White people, this is all historical, you can look it up. And what they did was they said, okay, you can share in the land and that'll replace the 40 acres and a mule. But what they did was they said, hey, you have to use our tools. You know, these are not your tools. So we're going to rent our tools to you. We're going to rent our hoes and picks and axes and all that to you. So at the end of the month, when it was time to divvy up how much corn and hay and wheat was bought, they say, well, your half is $350. Our half is $350. But you use our tools, so we're going to charge you $345 for the rental of our tools. And then we're going to take that $5 and that'll be your pay every time. So, and then the gold rush came, and blacks were prohibited by law to go west and find gold. It was a matter of law in most states. Black people couldn't prospect. And then after that, the turn of the century in the 1900s, at the turn of the century, then World War One came out, and then blacks started going to war, and then they segregated that and put them in their own barracks and put whites in their own barracks. And then they said blacks can only be cooks. They can only sweep the floor. So it was always that suffering. And then, of course, the land rush in the United States, where, hey, go west, young man, go west. Then that happened. And then as a result, blacks were excluded from the land rush. And that's where the term redlining come from. They took all the black and all the marginalized communities in the country, and they drew red lines around them and shaded them red. And they said, we will not allow our banks to lend money to these areas, all black. That's why the Tulsa riot happened, because black communities, and there were many, Harlem, many black Renaissance areas where there were banks and butcher shops and schools and insurance companies, and no church on every corner or liquor store on every corner. There was a church for the community. It was community. And on what actually occurred, and this is why Montes is feeling it. I'm trying to explain that to you. This is why he's feeling what he's feeling, because he's probably getting information from all of these different topics. And then, of course, and then that's why the ghettos became the ghettos. And that's a Jewish word. I'm sorry, German Jewish word, the ghetto. It became the ghetto because there was no resource. And when the Civil Rights Act happened, worst thing that ever happened to America in its context. If they had a more policy of integration and not desegregating. What do you do when you desegregate something? I want to desegregate this salt and pepper. That means I take all the pepper out of the salt. Well, I take all the salt out of the pepper. I desegregate it. It's now, it's no longer together. Now, what happens when you do that? You're pulling out of the resources from the community. Like all the doctors and lawyers and professionals of the African-American community went to white America and struggled with that too. And there was nothing left in the inner cities. And you see white men, even Trump drove by one day and said, I don't know how those people live like that. Because nobody knows the history of why it's like that. And then it just perpetuates its own ecosystem of denigration and downtroddenness. It just happens. So I say all that to say to you, learning that information for the first time will piss you off. It will, it'll upset you. But he doesn't know how to turn it around and not take it out on you. Because what happens in some relationship is when people have problems with people they cannot confront, they normally take it out on the people that's closest to them. And you just so happen to be in that spot. So you have to build a relationship based on how to, not only how and where to put that knowledge and how to, absorb it, but also on how to apply it and use it. And you need to be able to talk about that. That's why I'm sharing with you that history so you to understand where his statement is coming from. He's not right in the way he's doing it. And the only reason he's not right about it is because nobody ever told him that you're wrong, outside of you. You're absolutely correct. You should not have to deal with that. And you should get his support, but you should not have to defend yourself for something that happened several hundred years ago. But you need to understand everybody else was paid. All the white people along every one of these things I discussed were actually paid as a part of history. It's well documented everywhere. You can go to the Library of Congress, you can go to wherever, the library, and you find all this information, but that's not your fault.
Hey, and guess what? I was ostracized when I was 16 years old for dating black men. I got the brunt ass end of it too.
Yeah, you did, but it's not the same experience because you get to do something most
No,
people do.
it's not the same experience.
Here's what you get. You get to walk into an elevator and stand there and people go, hi, how are you? I've seen it happen a million times in my life. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. You know that banter people do when they just don't have anything else to say. They just talk. Oh my God, I can give you that and this, that. You get that. Black people get normally, not from all white people, but quite a few, they get this. Or look at their purse, they look at their kids, they look at you. They look at the purse, they look at the kids, they look at you. I get that. I don't look like a
See,
criminal.
and I will say something about it.
Of course you would, because you can. You have the privilege. You're white. White people can say something. Black person say something, they call the police. Who do they take? The black person. Every time. Oh, if not every time, 90% of the time. That's why black people, tolerate it, because they know when the police comes, and if a white person calls them, they think it's a death sentence. From George Floyd backwards or forward, you can see 100,000 instances of that a year. Everywhere you can see it. That when the police comes, they know that the black person will be at fault no matter what. Unless there is just, there are quite a few good cops out there, but not all the time are they rationalizing things. That's why we have a norm therapy for police, so that we're developing now. So norm therapists, policemen can become norm therapists while on the job. And so when they walk into a domestic violence or a circumstance, they'll be more equipped to use the tools of norm therapy than a therapist, because
Whitehall's got some pretty good, like, I could have went to jail for real talking to that officer and
I
letting
say
him
there's
like,
some great cops out there. Listen, I'm not putting cops down at all. I support brothers in blue like you. I almost went to several of those government agencies when I left the military. So I have a great respect for these different administrations and police units and law enforcement. Great respect. But there are some bad cops too, some very bad ones. That is, I saw a guy, I just saw a video the other day where a guy walks in and the lady was threatening her husband and he just shot her in the chest. He put out his gun, black lady, just shot her in the chest, didn't say anything, just shot her right in the chest. His partner, it's on the video cam, the vest cam. His partner gave him, it was a Hispanic woman, I think it was, his partner. She gave him her taser. He put it in his hand, turned the corner, switched the taser out for his gun, and shot the person. Okay, this happens every day. You there? Yeah, this happens every day, everywhere. And it goes very well unaccounted for oftentimes, unless you have an incident where it's been recorded. And there are thousands of those, but there's also just as many, because white people are the majority of Americans, where white people are abused like that and hurt like that. But that's not the norm. So it's not like it only happened to black people, but to have such a small percentage, 11% of the population versus 60 or 70% of the population, the same amount of those incidents happening there's 100,000 happening in the white community and there's 100,000 happening to that small percentage. That's a huge difference, a huge difference. I'm not supporting, yes, I am supporting black people because I know it, because I live it every day, but I'm not supporting what he does to you. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to
and that's just
enlighten
like,
you of why it happens.
I even got him an interview on Monday at another location of the same place that I work. Do I want to put my name on that? And then he act crazy and not go to work or I don't know. I'm really
Well, if you continue
and then
therapy,
and then if I work too long, it's, oh, well, all I ever do is clean the house. Well, if I didn't have a job and I was here, that's what I would do. And you worked all the time. So it's got to be some give and take.
it does.
It's got
Here's what you got to look at. You're doing the right things and you're leading by example those right things. There is absolutely nothing that you're doing wrong in that regard, except for one thing. You're holding him to a higher standard that you had to develop and create and live by for a little bit longer than he. And with more information at your hands that you agree to and you understand is beneficial to your life and your children. So for the lack of a better term, you're on a much higher plane. That doesn't make you better than him. It does not make you smarter than him. But you are more advanced in how to treat the relationship, schedule life, and deal with it. Educate yourself.
He's very smart. He's very intelligent.
I know. That's why I'm telling you all of this. But the context, he's a smart guy. He's cunning too. He's a very cunning guy. He knows how to read people and read situations. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but he's doing bad things because that's all he knows. If he knew better, he would do better. That's why I'm here, to help him know better. That's all. I'm not telling him, you got to do this in order to be a man, and you got to do that in order to be right. No, this is what men do. These are the right things to do. Whether you adopt them or not is up to you. But listen, what you've been doing so far haven't worked. So let's try something new. And once people see the futility in what they've been doing, which he has not yet recognized because he's just getting started on that path. But once people normally see the futility in what they do, they will normally cessate or stop or slow down or quit that activity and try something new. But you have to see it first. And he's never going to see it in the context of an argument. He's never going to see it because somebody's telling him you have an ultimatum. Either you get your stuff together or you get out, just like he was saying to your son, or I'm moving on. Those kinds of things, he'll never see it. He'll only ever see it is if you do it. When you actually exercise the power that you have and you use it, and the power is you know how to lead, you know how to get things done, and you just do them. You don't wait for somebody to give you permission, you just get them done. That's you. He needs that same thing in his life. I mean, he of course, he's a self-initiator. He's not some lazy dude. He just puts himself in lazy situations that in which he becomes complacent, like sitting around a house, not having anything to do. When he could be probably online, taking an online course, reading or doing something to strengthen his mind. And not just looking at the black shows, although those black shows to a black man are very important. Black man has not had a voice.
Anything he watches, I watch with him.
Exactly. And no, and I think that you're commendable. Bobbi, if there was something wrong with you, I would say, Bobbi, you need to sit more with your husband. You don't have to defend anything. Remember, the only two things you ever need to defend is your honor and your life. That's it. You or the lives of the people you care about. You don't have to defend anything else. Why? I'm just saying to you that you're doing the right things, but he's not. It's like you are a ripe apple. When you bite into it, it's just sweet. It's ready. It's life. It's like she's ready to go and be made applesauce out of. But if you bite into his apple is still kind of hanging on the tree. It hasn't fallen off yet. And it still needs a bit of ripening and moving along. And so I'm saying all that to say to you that if your understanding of abuse, if your understanding of where you want to be in life, what you will tolerate and what you won't is much further advanced than his. And it is, because I trained you and I talked to you and my people in our school. We know you know. And he doesn't. He hasn't been taught those things. Doesn't mean he's dumb. It doesn't mean he's beneath you. It's just that he's on his own arc. He's on his own learning curve where he needs to get there. And you have to see with your training and as well as with your patience and understanding, because you know you're not a pushover. And that's the best part of you. Nobody can just push you over. So if you can't be pushed over from what you have developed and nurtured within yourself and created new knowledge areas of your brain that otherwise you probably would have never used, and you set discipline patterns up for your life, take that model and make that your relationship model and his path to success in that relationship. Whatever it is that you're doing, you have to lead it and do it by example. Because people who don't know what you know, trust me, they'll get more out of it without you lecturing them. They'll get more out of it you showing them, and then lecture them. Lectures are good. A lot of people don't want to be talked to like that. They're good because you get information, but you have to be willing to listen. That's what makes it not a bad lecture. But you have enough knowledge, information, you got enough courage, character, experience to not let that trigger you, because you know his position in life, insofar as the same things you went through, is not where you are. And you're not at the end of the tunnel yet, but you damn sure see the light. You're like right there, stepping out in the light, and you're doing this stuff right now. And when you get out of that tunnel, then you got to deal with other things. You got to deal with the environment you just worked yourself into. You got to now, they say sometimes the hardest part is not getting in to anything in life. The hardest part is staying in once you get in. So now you got to deal with, creating yourself to be in that environment through that tunnel that you've gone through. And it's been a long, hard, dark tunnel for you. He's at the beginning of the tunnel. He don't even see the light yet. He understands that there is a light, and that's the important thing, but he doesn't see it yet. So I'm not making an excuse for him, but in reality, that's exactly what's happening. His whole idea is to be a part of you, Bobbi. I don't want you to disconnect with him or yourself.
So a meeting of the minds.
Yes.
Quality time.
Yes.
There was one more, you said 3.
You have to lead by example.
Lead by example.
Yes. And but how's your job going? I want to ask you that before we go back to
amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
Tell us about it. Tell us about
it. They're giving me my own office. All my trainings are done. I'll be doing presentations, kind of like methods of teachings and trainings.
There you go.
I love it. I love it.
Told you come in handy. There you go.
Yep. So I got selected to do that. And then I'll also be doing my practicum hours there with for OSU. I think I only got 105 hours over a period of 4 months. So I'll be able to do that there. And then also another human trafficking outreach for my community events. So
Yay.
yeah, I can do it all in one place. Yep. And got him an interview on Monday at the other location. So
he suffers from low self-esteem. He even said it on air. He said it to you, and he said it to me. So, but there's a reason why he has low self-esteem. That's why you're worried if he's going to do the right thing and be dependable and be all that. A part of the solution instead of the problem. It's because he's never really people thought much of him. That's just it. I mean, you chose him as a husband, so you obviously saw something in him that was better than what he thought of himself, and he saw something in you better than what you thought of him. So,
and I asked him to marry me.
Well, there you go. So you chose this route. You just didn't know that it came with a whole lot of extra tonnage, and you're trying to alleviate some of that weight off of your shoulder. That's it. And the way you do it, always, the way you get to anything productive is through acceptance, knowledge, and action. This is so important. Acceptance, knowledge, and of course, you have to, and I don't want to say the power, but it slipped my mind because I wanted to add one more word to it. But the acceptance, knowledge, and the understanding that you have to come to a meeting of the minds with each other in any scenario, and through knowledge, you can make that happen. Through that acceptance, initially saying that I know this person doesn't have what it takes to be here. So I need to help them and nurture them along with myself. It's not like having a child and said, oh my God, let me just grow this child up and let me make this child, a part of our lives and teach them how to be human beings. Not that kind of nurturing, but the kind of nurturing where they make mistakes and you don't hold it against them. They say the wrong things and you let them know that you won't tolerate it, but at the same time, you share with them a better way and you talk to them in that better way. And when you start leading like that in any relationship, you immediately become the higher power, the better of two evils, or better of the evil against goodness. You become the higher understanding of a better place to be. You don't just talk it, you're living it, you're walking the talk. And I think that's what, I think that's very important, that you recognize you're doing that. But in a moment, it's hard when your emotions start flying and you get balled up and hot. Like, what did he just say to me? You call me a white this or da-da-da-da-da. That should never be even in your vocabulary for that conversation. because those are the lowest points you both can take each other. He's wrong for that. And I'll talk with him about that. But I'm listening to your side of the story. He may say, well, she called me a dickless jerk. Forgive me for saying, but let's say you said that. That's emasculating, it's denigrating, it's terrible, it's low. You know, let's just say you guys go there with one another to those extremes. If you go to nigger, or if you go to white trash, or whatever he said, or whatever you said, if you go there, that means everything else is free game too. So I'm just imagining that some of these other things occurred. And so you have to stop all of that. Emasculation is so powerful. When you take a man's manhood away from him by showing him and demonstrating to him that your opinion of him is low, and that what you think of him is low, how you regard him is low, how you trust him is low, the words you say to him are low. When you do that and a person feel that you've just relegated them to a lower level of existence, then they have nowhere to go.
But I put him on a pedestal.
I know.
Above my kids, above everything that I do.
I know, but what do we talk
There's
about in your
some
happiness
things
index?
that I won't do, and that's when it comes to my work, because if I don't work, there's no money, there's no house, there's no nothing.
I understand. But what do we talk about your happiness index? That index can be used for anything. That is, up here at the top, your exuberance. In the middle here, you got your content. And at the bottom, you have the bad stuff. So you have to still operate when you're in those awkward circumstances with them in the middle ground. That's where you get most things done. That's why it's bigger. And every now and then something great happened, like he's got a job interview. And if he gets the job, that'll be wonderful. You got a job and they're now and putting you in charge of some major things and giving you a lot of responsibility.
The only thing that I'm scared of is that he'll fuck up and then my name is no good, because I don't sign my name to somebody that,
well,
you know.
That's one of the meeting of the minds conversations
Get out.
you need to have with him. But I'm certainly going to touch on that issue when we talk. Now, his interview is Monday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I won't be able to talk to him before the interview, but I can tell you that if he gets the job and he moves along in that job, I'll be talking with him through our sessions. And if he's available for the sessions still, because I'm not sure what those time zones are, but he needs the additional encouragement and the additional knowledge, I think.
Yeah, it'll be the same time, same
Good.
work, same time.
Good. Then that's perfect. So he'll be able to make these meetings so long we can continue to do that. I think that'll be great. But I'm saying to you all of this for a reason. All of what you talked about today is very valid. It's very important. It's very useful stuff. This is not some unusual set of circumstances. We go, oh my God, what do we do? You know exactly what to do and you're doing it. You're not perfect yet, but you're getting there. You're getting to where you have this parameter, and inside of that parameter, these things happen and operate in a certain way. So we can achieve out of that effort this or that or whatever. Like you just said, pay the bills, keep things going. I got to have that job. Okay. He's not there yet. And you know that because there was a time when you both were sitting there worrying about money. Now you don't have to worry about that. And you are a much better human being insofar as the world is concerned for what you need to get accomplished than he is, his operative phrase, right now. He's on his way to becoming a better operator as a human being with the new tools that he's learning about how to deal with people, talk with people, think of himself, deal with his circumstances, respond or react. He's on his way to that. But all he still knows right now is what he knows. And I'm going to say something nasty to her and I'm going to treat her in a low way. And she's going to respond negatively. And then I'm going to pounce on her. That's what he knows. There's a better way to do it. And that's not it. And I think he knows that too.
Because it's putting a wedge. It's doing this thing. Just doing that. That's what's happening.
Exactly. Well, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. I know I didn't give you a chance to go into too much because I don't want you to complain about it.
Fester on it.
Right.
I don't want to fester on it.
Exactly. You don't want it, because when something festers, it becomes septic, or sepsis, where it just rottens you from the inside and you die. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is talk solution. I recognize a problem. You recognize a problem. So long as we both recognize the problem, what we really need to do is talk about the solution. But it's not
Meeting
about,
of the minds.
it's not about you, just you, Bobby, knowing this. It's about making sure he knows it. And we're on that path to that knowledge as well. Whether he accepts it or not will make the difference in the world. That is what we need to strive for, and just kind of tolerate it. Don't put up with it. Just tolerate it and walk away. Be quiet, walk away. Get up, walk out the house, go for a drive, go sleep in a basement, go do whatever you have to do, but get out of there. Extricate yourself out of it. Now, I need to read a couple things before this is over, if that's okay with you. Is there anything you want to say to us now, Bobby?
No, I'm gonna have a meeting of the minds, and it'll just be us. No kids around. I don't like to argue with my children around. I don't like that.
And that's a smart thing to
No.
do. The smartest thing you'll ever do with children is not have your arguments and your discussions in front of them. Don't do it. That's a very smart move, because no matter, or speak to them in a low manner, like get out the house and I'm gonna talk to them about that, because there's a better way to do it. You can get more out of kids.
But I was proud that we were, able to put that to the side so that the boys could have a nice day, and we did.
I'm glad for it. See, it's doable. You just did it. You just need to create that as your rule of life instead of your exception to the rule. Right now, it's an exception to the rule. We made sure we put everything aside so they can have a great day. No, they should be able to have everything put aside every day so they can have every day a great day. That's the rule. That should be the new rules. We'll talk about that too over time. But if you've enjoyed and got something out of today's session, please show us some love by, of course, sharing the video, subscribing to our channel, and liking it. Our next norm therapy session will be Tuesday, January 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Montes, of course, Bobby's husband. Or please go, of course, to GoArrow, GoArrow.org, and normtherapy.com to explore our opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone in need of our services. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Thank you, Bobby. You're an amazing woman going through hell right now. But for whatever depths life take you to, if life takes you to 100 feet of depth, when you come out on the other side of greatness, you'll go 100 feet above. But you have to know that depth in order to know that game. So I'm looking forward to you realizing more and more successes in your life and battling your way through what you're going through with your husband and family now. I think that
I've battled through worse.
there you go. If you know you can do it because you battled through worse. And that's some of the best knowledge you'll ever have, experiential knowledge. I'm proud of you. We'll talk more about that journey as we move along. I wish it was more than an hour, but I think my voice would give out. Who knows? But I look forward to seeing you next Sunday.
Okay.
Take notes in a week and how it goes, and those things we talked about, kind of jot some notes about them and see if they work for you, okay? Instead of against you.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Talk to you soon, Bobby.
All right. See ya.
See you.
Bye-bye.